Seen via nostalgia, life in the suburbs of the 1950s may have seemed idyllic. Not to say that there weren't some issues. Major battles fought in the suburbs by Irma Bombeck. Read by Karl. Finding the builder who built the house, 1945 to 1954. Edward C. Plague, the builder of suburban gems, made Howard Hughes look like an exhibitionist. No one had ever seen him. His phone number was a candy store that took messages. The billboards bearing his picture showed only the back of his head. If it's an emergency, said my husband, I suppose I could track him down. Well, every time I push down the toaster, the garage door goes up. The hot water heater is hooked up to the garden hose, and I am sauteing the lawn. The sliding glass doors don't slide. The walls heat up when I turn on the porch light. The whole toilet does not accept tissue. Half of our driveway is on our neighbor's property. The grapes on the kitchen wallpaper are growing upside down. And I have a sign on our front door reading, out of order, please use house next door. I think our best bet is to try and pin down the contractors, said my husband. I'll see what I can do. 2 minutes later, we had tracked down our plumber. He defected to a small country behind the Iron Curtain, taking with him the last of the 1/15-inch pipe used in our bathrooms. Delivery was guaranteed to 3 years. Our electrician was facing charges of involuntary arson of a large office building where political corruption was suspect. He contended his bed was the lowest offered, a case of Coors. A building foreman had returned to high school. He explained it had only been a temporary summer job to earn enough for a bicycle. A furnace man was living under an assumed name in Yuma, Arizona. Our painter was drying out in a sanitarium in upper New York State. And our concrete man was studying contract law at the University of Cincinnati. I don't want to panic you, said my husband, because I think we're stuck with our own repairs. Why should I panic? Just because when our water pipes sweat you prescribed an antiperspirant? Oh, come on. Just because you were too embarrassed to ask for a male or female plug at the hardware store and I had to write you a note? You made your point. Just because we have the only toilet in the block reseated with Play-Doh? Look, he said, did you marry for love or did you marry to have your toilet fixed? When I didn't answer, he said, I'll get my toolbox. He sat down a small fishing tackle box that had originally been inscribed First Aid. This had been crossed out and Tools was misspelled across the top in pencil. Inside was a cork, 5 feet of pink plastic clothesline, a small hammer, a flashlight with no batteries, a curler, a poker chip, and a book of rain-soaked matches. This is it? This is it. What do you need first? He asked. Storm windows for the entire house. Are you crazy? He gasped. I'll need a miter box. I thought we sprayed for them. Can I start with something easy, like a revolving door? As a matter of fact, you could make one of those little doors for the dog that saves you from running him in and out all the time. You know, the one with the little hinges that flap in and out? Right, he said. No problem. You just saw a little hole in the door, attach the hinges, and you're in business. When I left me standing the dog against the wall with a tape measure and saying, let's see how much you've grown today. A few hours later, I felt a draft to the bedroom and went to check. You could have slung a herd of buffalo through the little hole in the door. Don't worry, he said. The door on it will eliminate the wind whistling through. Now what are you doing? I asked as he dropped to his hands and knees. Showing the dog how to go through it. Dogs have to be taught, you know, but they're great little mimics. He twisted and groaned until his body was halfway through the door. What's wrong? I asked. I'm stuck. Which end do you want me to save? Will you knock it off with your jokes? Here I am with half my body on the front porch and the other half on the hallway, and would you be terribly upset if I open the door right now? Why? The dog has to go out. Well, hurry up. When I'm finished here, I want to start on the storm windows. The search for Edward C. Plague continued for 9 years. Someone thought they spotted the back of his head in an Arthur Fiedler concert. Then a neighbor heard he was involved in selling beachfront property in Fargo, North Dakota. Whatever. We never saw the builder of suburban gems face to face. The one day we opened a newspaper and saw where Edward C. Plague had died. His funeral was one of the biggest the city had ever known. Mortars from suburban gems alone filled the church. Contractors who hadn't been paid couldn't even get inside. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. We were saying goodbye to the one man who knew where in Hong Kong our furnace was made, who alone knew the secret units of our patios that bubbled when the sun hit them, who would take with him his reasons for slanting the roof towards the center of the house and burying the septic tank on the living room floor. As we stood in the cemetery and mourning our loss, there was a flash of lightning and a rumble of thunder, as before our very eyes the large stone bearing the name Edward C. Plague sank to one side and remained at a 40-degree angle. There was no doubt in our minds. God was trying to tell us that Mr. Plague had gone to that big escrow in the sky. Getting sex out of the schools and back into the gutter where it belongs. My son was 5 years old when his teacher sent him a note informing him he was sexually immature. I confronted him the next day after school and said, "What is this supposed to mean, Mrs. Kravitz?" We'd had a little quiz the other day on reproductive organs, and he defined every one of them as an ask your father. You're sending a child into the world, Mrs. Bombeck, who thinks Masters Johnson is a golf tournament and fluorization is something you do in the fall to make the lawns green. That's true, I nodded. Have you ever discussed sex in your home, she asked. No, but once you caught Barbie and Ken together in a cardboard box in their underwear. Have you ever discussed with him the parts of his body? Only those that show dirt. You have to do better than that. This is a new day, Mrs. Bombeck. We don't hide our heads in the sand anymore. Suburban schools are taking the lead in informing young people about sex at an early age. For example, I am expecting a baby and I told the class about it. You told him you had something in the oven? I asked, incredulously. I told him I was pregnant, she said. I bit my finger. Good Lord, Mrs. Kravitz. I didn't know why my husband gasped every time Lassie cleared the fence until I was 26. Then you better get used to it, she said. Your son is about to be informed. The suburbs didn't invent sex. They only gave it a wider distribution. No one could have known the ramifications sex education could have had in the community. Little boys wrote dirty sayings on the sidewalk like chalk, as they always did, but adults didn't protest. They didn't understand what they meant. Parents who tried to deal directly with their children by saying, "Look, Brucey, there seems to be some confusion between sexual and asexual reproduction. We're only to be interrupted with, 'Look, Dad, you should have come to me sooner. What do you need to know?'" Eavesdropping, among young people, dropped off 75%, but increased 86% amongst adults. And one second grader confronted his parents one night with, "You little devils, you. You told me I was conceived without sin." Things had clearly gotten out of hand and we knew it. So a meeting was called at the school to discuss the future of sex education. "Frankly," said the librarian, "I'm worried. Do you realize the new National Geographic has been in for 3 weeks and not once has been checked out by a third grader?" We gasped. "The youngsters don't want to play doctor and nurse anymore," said their distraught father. "My son wants to open up his own office." "I'm afraid," said Ken Kinsey, the impact of sex education goes even deeper. We now have before us the problem of dress code. Seems the laxity of certain rules and the casualness with which we are regarding the human body, some youngsters are coming to school in various attire. Tonight we've been asked to consider the outcome of displaying, he swallowed hard, the navel. The librarian sucked in her breath. The co-chairman cleared his throat, and I grabbed from my son's sex magazine to see if it had a double meaning. "It seems," continued Ken, "that many of our little girls have been wearing jeans that fit around the hips and shirts that hang just below the rib cage, and there is a barrier area in between that needs some clarification. Anyone have any ideas?" "I've always felt if the good Lord had meant for people to go nude, he would never have invented the wicker chair," said one mother. "Have we established what a navel is?" asked the teacher. "I think it's safe to assume that most of us are familiar with the navel." "Wait a minute," said a mother. "There are navels and there are navels. I mean, some are outies and some are innies. I personally find the outies disgusting." "That's strange," said her husband. "I find them sexy." "You don't know how strange," said his wife. "I have an innie and demand to know where you've seen an outie." People, let's get back to the issue here. Should we permit the navel to be displayed on a classroom atmosphere? Today the navel, tomorrow the buttock, growled the math teacher. "It seems to me," said a parent, "that if lax dress codes are allowed to continue, we may be in for something that only the National Guard can handle." "I worry," said the mother who had been sitting quietly, It will blow the lid off a whole can of emotions. I mean, how do you expect a 6-year-old to stay in the lines when he colors if distracted by a bare navel sitting at the desk at, next to his? I see nothing wrong with navels, said a militant in the rear. Why are all of you so hung up over something so normal as a navel? Navels are not on trial here, interrupted Ken. Simply we must draw the line somewhere with relaxing morals among our young people. So if you're ashamed of your navel, persisted the militant, I'll put a band-aid over it. What does the U.S. government say about navels? Asked a businessman. To my knowledge, there is no department at the moment that's conducting any sort of findings on the subject, said Ken. If we could just get back to the subject. If you ask me, said a concerned mother, think by condoning navels in a public school building, we are lowering the age of puberty. Next thing you know, we permit them to have acne before they're 10 and lower their voices at 9. I say they're growing up too fast. Let's save the navels for later where they can handle them and enjoy them like adults. There was a round of applause, and a few stood up at the back and said, "Hear, hear." "Should we put it to a vote?" asked Ken. "Okay, all of you in favor of issuing a dress code in which navels must be covered, signify by saying aye, or roar. Opposed? 1. You bet your sweet umbilical cord." Now, the next thing on the agenda, said Ken nervously, is Miss Barker, who teaches the 3rd graders human sexuality, would like to have a lab. I slipped out the back door. I wanted time to consider the ramifications, the objectives, the impact of bringing such a program within my child's learning process. Also to have my 6-year-old explain to me what human sexuality is. Saving the recession from a depression. Following World War II, when the nation began its migration to the suburbs, there was fears the economy would give way to a period of depression. There entered upon the scene 3 commodities destined to bring the country to its economic feet again. The picture window, the green lawn syndrome, and 2 teenage dolls, Barbie and Ken. No one could have imagined the impact these 3 items had on the spending habits of the settlers. In retrospect, it was simply a matter of figuring the odds. 30 million suburbanites, all supporting and maintaining a picture window, green grass, and 2 naked dolls, would have brought any nation out of the darkest despair and into prosperity once more. The picture window. To build a house in the suburbs without at least one picture window was considered un-American. I personally knew my heart would stop beating if I did not have one. As I had said to my husband, imagine a window with 9 feet of glass that would invite the sunshine in during the day and reflect the stars at night. That would reveal neighbors waving a friendly hello. That would allow the gentle breezes of a summer night to come indoors and hold the snow at winter at bay with its frosty patterns on the glass. Who would need any form of entertainment with nature's panorama changing with the seasons? Who would need rewards in this life other than viewing happy children at play? You got the picture window, he said helplessly. 2 days later I said, the man is coming today to cover the picture window. It will cost $500. Cover the window, he gasped. What about your inviting the sunshine in during the day and reflecting the stars at night? The sun is blinding me. I can't get away from it. And the dog is beginning to tan. As for stars, forget it. The only thing that window attracts at night are window peepers. A month later I informed my husband, the furniture has to be covered. It will cost $800. But it's always been good enough for us. Exactly. But is it good enough for the neighbors waving a friendly hello through our picture window? I thought we got the windows covered. You can't keep the curtains drawn in the picture window all the time where people will think you have something to hide. 4 months to the day, I casually mentioned the picture window would need storm covering and screen. This was around about $400. Wait a minute, he charged. This is the same woman who said she was going to allow the gentle breezes of a summer night to come indoors and hold the snow winter at bay with its frosty patterns on the glass? That's before I realized the summer breezes harbor mosquitoes that suck your blood. Besides, I've had it with these frosty patterns on the glass. The window is causing frosty patterns on the children's lungs, and our walls look like a waterfall. We were 2 weeks in the summer when I informed my husband, we're getting a liner to block out the light of our window so we can watch TV during the daytime. It will cost $150. His head jerked up slightly. What happened to nature's panorama changing with the seasons before your eyes? Nature's panorama has deteriorated into a view of old Mr. Hudson framed in his picture window in his underwear, scratching his stomach and picking his teeth with a matchbook cover. One night I met my husband at the door. We are getting picture window insurance. It will cost $28 a year. I don't believe us, he said. When did you become disenchanted with the rewards of reviewing happy children at play? Well, Michael Armstrong's baseball came crashing through our picture window. Meanwhile, we'll have to have this one replaced. It will cost $160. I'd never seen my husband bite his necktie in half before. The suburban lawn. Never in the history of the world have so many men sacrificed so much, so often, at such a price, for so little. The green grass is what lured settlers to the wilderness in the first place. They wanted to cultivate a little patch of greenery that would tickle the feet of their barefooted babies, cushion their falls, and cradle them in the bosom of the soil. It seemed incongruous in the quiet of an evening to hear a father pull his son close to him and say, "You cut across that lawn one more time, Gilbert, and I'm going to break every bone in your body." The suburban lawn not only became an obsession with the suburban husband, it became the very symbol of manhood. Not to have a lawn was like admitting you turned off the Super Bowl to take a nap, used deodorant shoes in your t-shirts, or had training wheels on your Harley Davidson. Every casual greeting opened with, "How's the lawn, buddy? Hey, Frank, so you got your crabgrass on the run?" Or, "Set your blade down an inch, Buck." We all did. Keeping up with a couple of hundred lawn enthusiasts was not only backbreaking, it was downright expensive. No one knew any better than one poor devil of suburban gems who divorced his wife. His name was Lyle Link. The settlement was rumored to be the stiffest decision ever handed down in a court of law. Lyle's wife received no alimony, no support whatever to the children, as she assumed payments on the house, the car, and the furniture. Lyle got custody of the lawn. It was like being on parole. He couldn't leave the state, he couldn't afford to remarry, and it wasn't time to drink. There were fertilizers, weed killers, maintenance, keeping up with the neighbors. Lyle was spending more time at home than he ever did when he was married. There wasn't a night he was not hauling bags of manure and nitrogen, trimming around walks and trees on his hands and knees, watering, mulching, and clipping. Lyle started out with a hand mower, but eventually bounced the neighborhood pressure and got a rotary mower. This led to a lawn sweeper to pick up the grass, which a gong trimmer to get closest to the walk, and a spreader to evenly distribute new seed and fertilizer. Every week with some new gimmick to bite us and everyone racing to the garden center. One evening, as Lyle was tooling around in his riding mower with the running bucket seats and the console dashboard, his automatic sprinkler creeping on silently over the green carpet, his hedges topped perfectly with the electric hedge trimmer, the trees being fed automatically just the right amount of iron and nitrogen, his neighbor dropped by and said, "Too bad about your lawn, Lyle." Lyle shut off his motor and paled slightly. "What do you mean, too bad about my lawn?" "The whole neighborhood is talking about it. I thought you knew." "Knew what? For God's sake, tell me." "Your lawn has root rot." "Nematode." Lyle's eyes misted. "Are you sure? Didn't see the little brown spots that never seemed to get better when you watered them?" "And it's such a young lawn," said Lyle. "How long does it have? With no bicycles, sleds, or kids running over it? I give it about a year." "Well, we're not going to give up," said Lyle, squaring his shoulders. "They come up with new things every day. We're going to fight," he said, heading out towards the garden center. "Hey," yelled his neighbor. "Maybe this isn't the time to bring it up, but I heard your wife is getting remarried." Lyle turned slowly, disgust written plainly on his face. "What kind of animal are you?" he asked, his voice quivering with emotion. "First you come here and tell me my lawn has root rot and nematode and there's nothing anyone could do to save it. Best has only a year to live. Then you babble on about my wife remarrying. Who cares? Don't you understand? If my law dies, I don't want to go on living anymore. Leave me alone." As his neighbor retreated, Lyle got down on his hands and knees and sobbed. "We'll travel. That's what we'll do, just you and me. We'll visit the White House lawn, the grounds in Mount Vernon, maybe upper New York State where the grass is green most of the time and you can make new friends." Barbie and Ken. The real lifesaver of the economy was a pair of teenage dolls who appeared ironically one Christmas stacked, excuse the expression, among the baby dolls who burped, ate, cried, wet, walked, and were as sexless as a stick of gum. My daughter picked Barbie off the cutter and exclaimed, Look, Mommy, there's a doll that looks just like you. I took out the 2.5-inch bust, the 3-inch hips, and the wig that looked like 2 filter tips without tobacco and said, she looks like she just whipped through puberty in 15 minutes. Barbie cost $5.98 in the buff, so we purchased a little dress, a pair of pumps, a bra, and a pair of briefs that came to $6.95. Are we going to buy her a girdle? Asked my daughter. Let's wait until she eats and see if she needs one, I said. If anyone believed for a moment that Barbie was going to be happy as a simple housewife, we were in for a surprise. Barbie was a swinger, and she needed the wardrobe to do it. Within a week, she had 3 lounge outfits, $5.95 each, an entire pool ensemble, $4.95, 2 formals, $7.95 each, a traveling suit, $6.95, and a skating outfit, $5. One evening, as I was on my hands and knees fishing Barbie's beach ball out of the sweeper bag, my daughter announced, "Barbie's lonely." "Terrific," I said. "Why don't you mail her to Camp Pendleton and send her silk sheets with her? I think we have to buy Ken." There was something weird about Ken, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It was a taller version of Barbie. He was wearing a jockstrap and an insincere smile. He cost $5.98. Within a week, his wardrobe consisted of tennis attire, $7.95, jumpsuit, $4.95, white tuxedo, $10.95, and a terry cloth robe, $3.95, plus a cardboard car, $12.95. As I explained to my husband, "Don't expect him to sit around night after night passing a beach ball back and forth, do you?" The little freaks were draining our budget, but I bought some of the patterns and was able to satisfy their clothing appetite by sitting at the sewing machine day and night. One day my daughter announced, "Ken and Barbie are getting married." It seemed reasonable. After all, they were thrown together day after day in a shoebox under the bed, and they were only human. "What exactly does this mean to me?" I asked. "Barbie has to have a wedding dress, $10.85, and a trousseau, $36.50, and Ken has to have a tuxedo." "Well, what's wrong with his white one?" I asked. "That's for dancing, not marrying," she said. "Anything else?" "A wedding party." "A what?" "We have to buy maids to some other people so they'll have someone at their wedding." "Can't you invite some of your other dolls?" "Would you want someone at your wedding with bowed legs and diapers?" The wedding was the social event of the year. Our gift to them was a cardboard house that looked like the Hilton. It was months before all the bills were in, but I figured the worst was over. Some families on the block were just starting with their first doll. All that was behind us now. The one afternoon in the kitchen, my daughter said excitedly, "Guess what? Barbie's going to have a baby." My eyes welled with self-pity as I ticked off the needs. One naked doctor, who played golf on Wednesdays. 2 naked nurses, who snorkeled on the weekends. 1 ambulance driver in the buff who skied. An unclothed intern who... The end.